Hello, everyone. Well, it's another week, and before the new year was over, we lost a couple of people. It was Barbara Walters and Pope Benedict the 16th. I think he's the 16th. Yeah, Pope Benedict the 16th died before the new year was out. Yeah, they didn't get to see the new year. But you ask, why should either one of these be any different from anyone else who's been dying? And the answer is no, they aren't any different from other people who've been dying, but they are famous, so they made it into the news. Just because they're famous, they made it into the news. But that's another discussion for another time. Do famous people deserve to be in the news when they die? Or do people even really want to know? Are they fans of Pope Benedict the 16th? He doesn't have a whole lot of fans, though a lot of people are mourning his loss. He also has a lot of enemies. But on to the subject of Barbara Walters. Oh, and I want to say real quick to the family of Damar Hamlin, we're very sorry. We're very sorry that your son is currently in critical condition. Our hopes and prayers go with you. We hope you recover. We hope you recover, and we hope he recovers and is back with you, his friends and family, in a timely manner. So, Damar Hamlin got creamed out on the playing field. He's with I think it's the Buffalo Bills. The guy he was tackling rammed him with his shoulder into his chest area while he was making the tackle. And then he got up, stood for about 3 seconds, and then he fell backwards and was in cardiac arrest. So our hopes and prayers go with Damar Hamlin. We hope that he has a speedy recovery, and we hope he lives, because football is a dangerous sport. I don't know if I would want a kid of mine playing football, because it is such a dangerous sport, and you never know when somebody has a hidden heart defect, or even doesn't even have a heart defect, but something traumatic happens to make the heart stop. So, on to Barbara Walters. Barbara Walters was a elitist. She was a classy lady. She was a class act. She had a lot of style. She had a lot of pizzazz, and she had a lot of charisma. Something that my ex-friend Judy would say, that I didn't have a lot of charisma. She tried to bring me down every way she could think of. I was like asking her if I had the charisma to do what I wanted to do, and she said, no, you don't have any charisma. And we were supposedly still friends at the time. So, done with Judy. I've had enough of her. But Barbara Walters was a classy lady, and she was very refined. She was very refined, very knowledgeable about her subject. She did lots of research. She was tireless researcher. She would go for days or weeks, even months, preparing for an interview. And she was the master of the interview. Yes, that Barbara Walters, she would interview anyone, and I mean anyone. She would interview Saddam Hussein. She would interview Fidel Castro. She would interview Vladimir Putin. There was no one that was off limits. She even interviewed mass murderers and people in prison, scam artists. She would interview anyone and everyone. She asked the tough questions. First, she would warm them up, paying them compliments, and then boom, 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 she would shoot off all of these hard, difficult to answer questions and wait for their reaction. She was a master at that. She was a master at the interview and the master of asking difficult, impossible, even silly questions to put people on the spot. That was the entertainment value. She knew how to bring it. She knew how to bring the entertainment value to whatever she did. And so we're celebrating Barbara Walters' life, but also let us not forget that her brainchild was The View. And I hate The View. I can't, sorry, I can't stand The View. Can't stand The View. Any respect I used to have for the people who are on The View, I've sort of lost it because The View is the worst show. These people who disagree politically shouting at each other for over an hour. Well, maybe exactly an hour. I don't remember how long The View is on for because I usually turn it off. I usually turn it off as soon as it comes on. And The View, oh, I can't stand The View. I hate The View. I despise The View. The View is not my cup of tea, and Barbara Walters created it. It's her brainchild. So Barbara Walters found out that some people can be entertained by people who disagree politically shouting at each other at the top of their lungs, and that's entertainment. And some people like that. Some people want to hear raucous discourse and shouting. And it reminds them of Jerry Seinfeld, or not Jerry Seinfeld, not Seinfeld. I meant to say Jerry Springer. Jerry Springer reminds them of Jerry Springer, the shouting, the carrying on, and the disagreement of the people on The View that hold differing views, but the main body of the view participants, they're mostly liberals, and they usually win by shouting down whoever it is that they disagree with. So it's a liberal show. The View is a liberal show, and its participants are mostly liberal. And the one conservative on the show doesn't know how to defend her views very, very succinctly or clearly. So I don't watch The View. I mean, I have it on for 5 seconds, and then I'm so disgusted by the things that Whoopi Goldberg has to say that I usually switch it off. It's usually Whoopi Goldberg that puts me off at The View, because they leave it to her to say all the dastardly things that it's just, they're so mean. They're so mean and cruel and vicious on The View. And I don't understand why Barbara Walters thought it would be a good idea. I can't read minds, but maybe she just felt all those years interviewing people, she felt like shouting her liberal viewpoints at them. And that's where she got The View from. She got it from her liberal viewpoints that she wanted shouted out to the whole universe at maximum volume. Could be. After all, I imagine that liberals feel a fair amount of frustration with the political realm here in America these days, because the conservatives corner them and paint them into a corner at every turn. Imagine that they feel hounded. And so because these liberals feel hounded, they want to shout out their liberal viewpoint and have a show just for themselves. It's sort of the equivalent of Fox News for liberals, this The View show. The View show is for uh, liberals and socialists to have their own show that reflects their viewpoint and their opinion and their chance to shout at the people that they disagree with. And it's a catharsis for them. They feel relieved that somebody is shouting their viewpoint at top volume at their real or perceived enemies, the conservatives. So it's a war. It's a tug of war. And that was Barbara Walters' special idea. That was her special idea for a show. So, but she had the idea of 2020, which was a good program for a while. Now all they show is murderers and murder trials and murder mysteries. That seems to be what the 2020 focuses on now, is murder. And all the cases of murder that went unsolved and are still somewhat up in the air to this very day, and we're not sure. We're not sure what the answer is or who done it. We're still not sure. And so they like those kinds of programs to line up on 2020 and go through all the ins and outs of the cases and all the strange details. And they ask themselves before they put a murder on their show, is this interesting enough? Is this convoluted enough? Is there enough evidence to make it a juicy show? That's what they ask themselves. But 2020 for years before this was a news program that interviewed people. They were masters of the interview, and Barbara Walters was the main interviewer. That's what 2020 was before the present day. Once they lost Barbara Walters, they had nothing left. They had no one left to do these interviews, and no one who could fill her shoes, so they just turned into a real crime program. But before that, they weren't a real crime program. They were interviewing world leaders and so on. And famous actors and actresses and famous musicians, those sorts of people. So popular news items, popular people they would interview. And so we are sorry to Barbara Walters. We were sorry she had to die, but she was really old. She was like 93 years old. Oh my gosh, she lived so long. It's hard to believe she lived so long. But 93 years old, she lived to be a ripe old age. And she was our friend, you know. She was Barbara Walters, our friend. And it's too bad that she had to create The View, but we can overlook that based upon her stellar career and how she did make inroads into the sexist, liberal sexist news organizations that were opposed to women having any role, and it was a man's game, and it was the newsmen. She flipped that around and had news women also. So it wasn't all newsmen anymore. Women could fill the role of a news anchor and be in the public view, be in the public eye. And so here's to Barbara Walters. Now on to Pope Benedict XVI, the Ratzinger. The Ratzinger. Ratzinger, Pope Benedict XVI, was he tried to cover up the sex abuse allegations to the best of his ability. He did everything in his power to cover it up until until the media picked it up. Finally, after all these years, the media picked up the story of the sex abuse victims that were abused by Catholic priests. They picked up the story, and there was a lawsuit, and then there was a series of lawsuits. And all through these lawsuits, Pope Benedict XVI did everything in his power to protect and cover up these sexual abuse allegations. He might have even been a sexual abuser himself, who knows? Maybe that's why he was sympathetic toward them. But he did everything in his power to cover it up, and then he finally became the first pope to actually speak to these sex abuse victims, but he had to be pushed into it. He had to be pushed into it by a tidal wave of public outrage. And people have known this for years, that the priests were pedophiles. They've known this for years. And they did nothing about it. They just covered it up, covered it up, covered it up, covered it up, covered it up. And now that it's known that they were pedophile priests, there was public outrage. But people have known about this for years and did nothing about it until recently. And they wanted to say, oh, well, there was a statute of limitations. These people can't do anything because of the statute of limitations. But then they opened it, when they opened the cases back up, they said, okay, maybe we'll waive the statute of limitations if it was a pedophile priest. No other sex abuse victims can get justice. Just the victims of pedophile priests can get justice. So they did that, and these guys were running scared because there was actually a chance that they would face prison time. But some of them were already dead, and the ones that were already dead, they just joined the lawsuit. They joined the lawsuit against the church, and church has been protecting these pedophile priests since Jesus was nailed to a cross, and they were already protecting pedophile priests. Probably Peter. Like, can you trust a guy named Peter? On this rock I will build my church, Peter. Peter. But, you know, that's a man thing, right? It's a male thing. But pedophile priests have been there from the very beginning, and the church knew it, and they tried to pretend this fairy tale land, la la land, where these pious, devout priests would live without sex. Well, sex is a part of human biology, and sex is a part of life, and you cannot push down your sex urge and not have any sex for the majority of people. And there were a lot of priests coming in and out, so the people that were wanting to prey on child victims were attracted to that role because they knew the church would protect them and that they would be safe to do whatever the hell they felt like to these children. It's terrible. It's just terrible. So Pope Benedict XVI will not be warmly remembered, I'm afraid. I think that he will be remembered as the pedophile priest protector. PPP for short. As if we need more acronyms. I'm so sick of learning acronyms. I've had all the acronyms I can take in my classes. I've had all the acronyms I can take. I'm sick of acronyms. I'm sick of trying to remember, memorize, and learn all these acronyms. And I'm sick of reading in the text the word once, and then all through the rest of the text they use the acronym and expect you to remember what it means when you read it just once. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. You have to ease into learning an acronym and have plenty of practice reading the name of the acronym. Have to search through the whole text till you find the name of the acronym and what it stands for. But I digress. Barbara Walters warmly remembered, despite the view, and Pope Benedict XVI not remembered well at all. And of course, Damar Hamlin, a harmless fellow that didn't deserve to get injured, and where our prayers and thoughts are with their friends and family. So, if I could leave you with one thought about Barbara Walters, what would it be? She was there for women. She was there as a pioneer for women in the news industry, and she always will be a pioneer. And we will miss Barbara Walters. And I'll see you next time.